Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with jazz guitarist David Gilmore. We caught up with him during the COVID-19 world on June 25th, 2020 to talk about his latest CD, From Here to Here, and so much more. He was born in Cambridge, Massachusetts, studied piano, drums, and percussion, and then took up guitar studies at 15. He left Boston for further studies at New York University, where his teachers included sax titan Joe Lovano and pianist Jim McNeely. Following graduation, he worked with the best in the business. His story is a great one. Get to know him and dig this interview.
At any rate, thanks for taking a minute again. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, man. No problem.
So we're gonna have to. I'm gonna have to do what you jazz cats do, and we'll just recreate the magic. You know, every time we hop on stage. So, so let me ask you this first and foremost, and I want to. This is kind of a two-part question. You know, From Here to Here, I want to know from you what your artistic angle on this release was. But more than that, you know, we're in the middle of COVID-19 and a pandemic and racial upheaval. What is it like for you to release this during this time where people probably have more latitude to listen, but you can't back it up live?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to treat this whole period as I don't know what the word is, but I'm just trying to keep going with the flow, so to speak, and doing what I did before. Obviously, the situation is vastly different for musicians and a lot of other professions, but you know, the kind of initial shock has hit already, and now I sort of feel like, well, you know, the momentum just needs to keep going. And at first, when I found out the CD was going to be released, because it's been delayed several times for other reasons, I was like, wow, okay, well, what am I going to do with this now? I can't book a tour. You know, in a way, I was almost feeling, what's the point? And then I started thinking, well, you know, I mean, we just got to keep moving forward. And, you know, the CD is meant to come out when it's meant to come out. And here it is coming out in the middle of a pandemic. Everybody's listening from home, you know, streaming like crazy. You know, physical copies are kind of almost a thing of the past at this point. So, you know, I'm happy to reach people in any way I can. So that's, you know, I'm just going forward, just doing what I've done before. You know, I just can't play in clubs at the moment. I have to play online streaming, but life goes on, you know.
It does indeed. Talk to me about the artistic approach to this album. What was your vision?
So this album kind of came up, I would say, I was sort of looking to bring a band on the road again. I haven't really done much touring with my own band in some time. And I wanted to kind of pare things down a little bit, because the last couple of projects I did were like quintet plus projects. And so I was kind of just thinking more like logistically what I could practically bring on the road these days. And I was actually talking to a promoter in Europe. So it kind of worked backwards, where I was like, oh, okay, well, I think I need to come up with another record, because the one before that was sort of 2 years prior. So then I just sort of sat down and thought of music that I could put together for a quartet with piano, which is kind of the original group I had on my first CD, the core group, at least piano, bass, guitar, and drums. And then I set out to write music, and I also called some music from that I've been playing over the years, some things I've never recorded that I wrote and played live, but it just never made it to the studio. I kind of did it that way, sort of backwards in a way. And, you know, I tend to paint myself in a corner a little bit with deadlines, but it seems to light a fire under me, for better or for worse. And so Jerry Teekins gave me a date, and I had maybe like just under 2 months to get it all together. And so that's what kind of prompted me to put it all together, was forming a tour and having a deadline to get it done.
So how did a kid from Cambridge, Massachusetts get to a point where you worked with Wayne Shorter, Dave Douglas, and a lot of really big names in the world of jazz? How did this all start and come about for you?
Well, I kind of grew up in a semi-musical family of sorts. My father was a professional musician for many years, but he quit long before I was born. But he always had his hand in music. He owned a nightclub called the Western Front, which was open for many, since '68 until a couple of years ago. And I got some experience not just working, cleaning up the bathrooms and stuff, but I also noodled around on some of the instruments that the musicians left there. My brother Mark Gilmore, he's a drummer, not to be confused with Marcus Gilmore. And so we just kind of noodled around a little bit, and then, we always had musical instruments in the house. My father played vibes and marimba, and I messed around on that a little bit. I would play percussion and drums at home. And it wasn't until I picked up my sister's beat-up acoustic guitar that I started kind of getting serious about learning chords and things like that. And I would say about maybe half a year into playing the guitar, I sought out formal private lessons with John Baboyan, who is to this day still a teacher at Berkeley. Actually, I was studying privately with him, and I ended up teaching his son, who went to Berkeley a few years ago. So kind of came full circle in a way. But that was kind of my thing. My mother played piano as well, and my brother's a professional musician. My sister used to play at home, and we just always had music. They had a great vast record collection of jazz and pop and James Brown, all kinds of stuff. Charlie Parker, Miles Davis, Louis Armstrong, Broadway classics, everything, and I just combed through that record collection, and then in my high school I had a really talented faculty. They were very much into having jam sessions and playing with the students. So that was another kind of way of playing out, like at an early age, playing in front of people and playing like our band played at high school events and my old elementary school as well. So I kind of started early, like around 15, I would say I started on guitar.
Being around the legends and luminaries and big names in jazz, what did you learn from them that in turn helped you as a teacher?
That's a good question. I would say playing with professional musicians, it's a very different experience. How they relate to music and what music is very different than, say, like maybe a person who's just been in the academic sphere of things. And so I've learned to kind of take what they do, which is more of a, I don't know, I would say like, the art of mentorship has been lost, that it used to be that you would learn music through mentorship and through interactive experience with people, whereas I'm not saying that doesn't happen in schools, but I feel like it doesn't often happen enough. So I'm very much into, I have to play with the students. It's a communication thing. I don't want to just sit there and tell them, theory and harmony. We can discuss it, but at the end, I'm always playing with the students. And I think that's really important. And to really talk more about what music is and create and the creative process, and not get so locked down with what's correct, what are the correct changes or whether the correct scales over these changes and stuff. There's so much more depth to it that professional musicians get into, that it's just beyond anything you could really teach in school. You just have to have the practical playing experience and the mentorship to really get to that level. And Wayne Shorter is a good example. I mean, he would speak very metaphorically about music and not theoretically about music. And Steve Coleman, very much a theory, but also metaphysical in a lot of ways of what he talked about. And I don't know, I guess I've learned over the years that it's not just about theory and chords. That makes sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Yeah. So you've been at this for a while. You clearly love what you do. So tell me, what's the best thing about being a professional musician?
The best thing about being a professional musician for me is the endless discovery of and growth, potential growth that's there. It's like a lifelong hobby that just keeps giving. I mean, there's just no end to it. You never say, well, okay, I've mastered this, I've mastered that. That doesn't exist. There's always something to learn and improve on, and that just keeps me occupied and interested and fascinated and frustrated too at times. But to also, it's a spiritual thing where you have to really kind of accept also your, I don't want to use the word limitations because I don't really believe in that, but we do all have certain maybe physical shortcomings or something like that we can continue to push through because we don't know what our limits are. But there's just always something to improve on, but doing it in a way that doesn't make it judgmental. You have to be forgiving to yourself and gentle with yourself, and not let it frustrate you, which it can. Music can be healing, but it can be, I won't say music can be hurting, but humans can be hurting and damaging to themselves when they take things like music so seriously. And I'm still learning not to always take it so seriously because in any profession there's competition and there's you're going to judge yourself against others and all this crap. And I just feel like this ultimately I got into music because I loved it and it was fun to do, and it should always be something that's fun to do. That should never disappear. So it gives me joy all the time.
So more specifically, why do you love jazz?
Why do I love jazz? So first, jazz, is, to me, it's more of it's not a stylistic thing, but it's more of an expression, a way of life. It's the spontaneity of improvisation, and just endless discovery in the spur of the moment that is so fascinating. It always fascinates me how a solo just starts out of thin air. Like, why did it start there? Why did it start on that note? Why did it go to the next note? Why did it go to this? It's just this unfolding, that happens spontaneously. And, in a perfect situation, you are not the owner of that. You're watching it develop as it happens, which is really the meat of the moment. It's very freeing if you can let that happen. And often it doesn't happen. Often we get in the way of ourselves. But when it does happen, it's just this endless discovery of watching something totally out of thin air just develop. And it's a language, that I can get on stage with someone from, who doesn't speak any English, I've never met, and we could have a conversation together. And it's a universal language that brings us together, the vibration of it, energetically. And, making a profession out of it is a whole nother thing. I've been very lucky to, play with people. There's a lot of ups and downs financially, but, that's just icing on the cake. But I try to separate the two because I realize it's two different functions. You have to kind of have a business sense in terms of marketing and this kind of thing. But then there's the creative side, and that's where things can get a little complicated for people, but music is music and commerce is commerce. If the two meet, it's a beautiful thing,
when we do get to the end of COVID-19 and we get back full force, you on stage, us in the audience, what do you hope we all collectively get from this time away from live music, both musician and the fans?
Hopefully, for me, I know I'm going to really appreciate what I had before in terms of, just walking into a place and not having to wear a mask and worry about getting sick or any of that stuff. I just think about how we take for granted how we're able to move around so freely and do what we do. So it's just every moment is precious to have that, I think in a way this virus, I always try to look at the pluses of it. It has slowed down human activity, and that has given the planet a rest, a big rest, a much needed one. And I can't help but wonder there's like a greater meaning behind that. Whether there is or isn't doesn't really matter. The result is the planet is getting a breather from carbon emissions and those kind of things. And I'm hoping out of that, there'll be a more consciousness about taking care of the planet and slowing down. I think we just move too fast as a species. We're always trying to get to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And there seems to be this like insatiable need to get something, which I feel is already there. And so if we can look inside ourselves a little bit more after this thing and see that we really already have everything we need, and we don't have to be, eating up the planet's resources, and living more harmoniously and recognizing we're all connected. I mean, if we don't realize now that we're all connected with this virus spreading like wildfire, I mean, to me, that's just like, it's a signal that we're all connected intimately. I mean, in the most profound way, the butterfly effect. It's there, how something can spread so quickly. It's just mind-boggling. That should just be an awakening to humanity, that we're so interconnected that everything we do affects everyone else. So that's what I'm getting out of it at any rate.
Everyone has their perception of you, their version of who they think you are, your family, your friends, your fans, your students, but you're the one living your life. Who do you think you are?
Well, yeah, I'm many things to many people. We all play our roles in life, and, being a father, husband, son, brother, I'm all those things, but, I sort of have a metaphysical take on it, that we're all these things, but we're none of those things. That we're sort of living sort of these roles that are defined by society, but at the same time, you put those roles on pause, then you have to ask yourself, what are you really? And what does it mean to be existing here? And so it's not a question that has an answer, that I can find at any rate. I know I'm aware, I know I'm conscious, and that's about it, and it's so simple, but it's so perplexing to really reflect on that we really don't stop and think about it. So I try to just sort of meditate on those kind of things sometimes, and it just by nature, I think, makes me take pause to just be a better person, and not get overly identified in these roles as a musician or this, that, or the other. We can't take these things too seriously. When we do, that's when problems arise. Because ultimately we're not all of these things. In relation to other people, they'll define you as this, that, and the other. And put you on a pedestal or put you down. And these are all mind games. So I just try to go back to the original, I exist, I am here, and before any roles were developed and thrown upon me, internally or externally. So that's kind of where I'm at in my life right now, and yeah, and I can play these roles that I've accepted, but at the same time, I don't take them to be my, defining, that's who I am, because who are we really?
Right. You're right, totally. Man, thank you for taking another chunk of time out for me. This was, again, great, wonderful to talk with you. Good luck with the album. Stay safe out there. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, all right, Joe. Thanks so much, man.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest cats in Boston, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to David for his time, music, and stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.